This is the pre-reading video for the global warming or global climate change project that we're doing in stats. What we're going to do here is talk about a pre-reading technique called THIEVES, and what this does is it helps you read more critically, helps you become generally a better reader, and in many cases after you get good with this it can make you a much faster reader, which can be a very useful thing as you head towards college. So get started. First section, title. So this is before you actually start going through the content. You want to start by looking at the title, get a sense of what this can tell you about the article, not just only in the topic, but also in the perspective of the author. So in this case, a great hoax tends to say that the author seems to be a little bit skeptical of something. And in this case, that's global climate change. To get a better sense of the argument they're going to make before they actually go into the details, you can look at the headings. So you can see they're addressing the opposition and the case for global warming, and then they jump into things like sea temperatures and glaciers and solar activity, where they are probably making an argument of some sort. Then, to get a better sense of tone and perspective of what the author is going to say, you can read through the introduction. And usually within one paragraph you can get a good sense of where they're going to go with things. And once you have that basic information to get you started, that's a good time to pause for a second from the reading and actually look back at your own background knowledge and familiarity with the subject. So what is it that you know or believe about global climate change? And in some cases you could write essays and essays about this background knowledge because it's been so popularized in our culture, but just jot down a few quick notes. What do you know, what do you believe, and where did that information come from? So that before you get influenced by what you're reading here, you have something to ground you in your previous beliefs. Jumping ahead, we covered T, H, I, and E. So now into the V, which stands for visuals. The V is getting into the actual content now. The visuals are a big part of the argument, especially in a statistics-based paper like this, where you see lots of graphs and charts. Now, given that it's a stats project, the visuals is actually one of the most important things you can be looking at. And not just what's the general purpose of this image, but how is it being presented. For example, in that first image you see two sets of trends that both are going up over time. This might imply correlation, but you need to be thinking, what is the causation here? Is one of these causing the other, or is there a lurking variable causing both? Or is it just pure coincidence that these things happen to be related? In another example, don't just look at the correlation between two things, but also look at the axes. What are the, in this case, time periods that are being plotted? If you look at this graph, the data suggests a very clear correlation between the fossil fuels and the shortening of glaciers. However, if you look at this data over a longer period of time, you can see that this trend has been going on for much longer than the increase in hydrocarbons, the increase in fossil fuel usage, in which case this infers something very different than the previous graph, even though it's showing the exact same data, just over a different time period. In addition, as you can see here, glacier shortening, what exactly are they talking about? Is this a single glacier that they conveniently chose for this purpose? Is this an average of all glaciers, just in the Arctic? Things like that. You need to be very critical of what you're looking at. Finally, as you get towards the end, you want to read the conclusion that the author wrote and see what the author is trying to get you to believe. So they set the tone with the introduction, they made an argument, and now what are they hoping that you walk away with after going through this article? And then finally, look at your own purpose for reading, not just the author's summary and purpose, but why is it that you read this? What are you expecting to learn, expecting to get out of it? So that's the basic gist of the pre-reading assignment. Go through the Thieves and fill out the quick notes for each of these areas for your assignment, so that before you actually read through it, you can have a good sense of what you're reading and why you're reading it, and be critical of the material inside, so that when you actually do get to the actual text, you can correlate that with all these other things you've already looked at. So go ahead and open up the article, get started, and post your conclusions on Moodle.